Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, we're going to take a domain controller and we're going to create it from a physical domain controller to a virtual domain controller. Why I'm holding up my hands, I have no idea. So I'm a big fan of using these little HP units. You know, this is the, what is it, the 160, I think, or 610. I don't know. I bought this thing years ago. I bought 3 or 4 of them. Gave some to clients, and then I've used some for myself. And for the last, oh my goodness, 3 or 4 years, my primary domain controller for my domain has been running on this little unit with an SSD hard drive in it. So, just so you know what I'm getting ready to do, I'm getting ready to revamp my whole entire network and change the way I do things in here and on the rack. And I'm looking to save energy and, consolidate things. So, the time for me to have a physical domain controller, I think, is gone. So what this video today is all about is converting your physical domain controller to a virtual domain controller. And then at the end of the video, once you've seen how I've done it, we'll talk about the pros and cons of doing that very thing, because you need to be aware of a few things. All right, so how many of you remember this machine? I'll give you a minute to identify what machine it is while I talk on about what we're going to do. Right now, this machine is my DC01 is the name of it. So it's my domain controller for UnkyJoe'sPlayhouse.local domain. So this is the big Kahuna server that is running DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, group policies, you name it, it's running it. So the goal today is to convert this unit from a physical machine running on, this is running on an HP thin client. Well, that was until today, until I decided that there is no reason at all why my primary domain controller, the one that rules them all, cannot be virtualized. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to convert this, or we're going to try to convert this over to a virtual machine that can then be moved onto whatever Hyper-V machine I have available while I'm doing maintenance on other parts of my network. It just gives me a little more flexibility. And then retiring that T610, that thin client, permanently. It's only got an AMD T56N processor in there and 3 gig of usable RAM. So it's, this is a machine that was designed for, I think, Windows 7. So the fact that we've had Windows Server running on it and up and running, don't pay attention to the uptime. It's been up and running on this system for almost 3 years now. Before doing any of this, though, I've already set up a secondary domain controller as a global catalog server as well, so that and with DNS, so that it mimics this server. And you need to make sure that you have a backup domain controller if you're going to try and do any of this stuff. We're not going to do a deep dive. This is not going to be a step-by-step of how we did this. I'm going to give you as close as I can to the steps required to make it happen. But you're going to have to do a little research on your own to figure all this out. And if you ask down in the, in the comments section, I'm sure people will help you, or come onto our Discord server. All of those links are at UnkyJoe'sPlayhouse.com. Now, one of the first things I did was I went out here to my DHCP server, and I created a folder on my desktop called DHCP Backup. And I just came here to the root of this server, right-clicked and went to Backup, and then told it to back up to that folder that I had created on the desktop right here. I'm going to cancel it. All right, so now it's already done it. So here's the backup, and here's the subfolders under there. Now, it's very important, wherever we're going to restore this to, whatever server we're going to restore this onto, I should say, we need to copy this folder onto that machine. All right, so I think I figured out what I need to do. So I need to right-click and copy this folder. And then I need to go to Explorer, and I need to connect up to the secondary domain controller. So that's DC02. But I need a specific share on that domain controller, which is the root of the C drive. So I'm going to enter a $C in there. And then that should get me to the root file, the C drive of the secondary domain controller. Then I need to go to Windows, go to the System32 directory, and I don't believe DHCP is installed on this server. And the reason I said it is because I don't see a folder in there called DHCP. So I'm going to create one. I'm following this article right here. So I'm going to create this folder called DHCP backslash backup. And then restore that backup folder to there, which would then be called DHCP backup. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to create a folder called DHCP and then a subfolder called backup and restore that data. So let's do that now. So we'll right click, we'll do new folder, do DHCP all in caps, and then we'll create a folder under there called backup. All right, and then we will go into that folder and we will paste the DHCP backup. All right, so now that folder is over on our secondary domain controller. Now, I believe what we can do is turn off the DHCP on this server. Let me go under services here. And I want to turn off the DHCP server service. There it is. So we've stopped it. Let's see if it's actually turned off now. Yeah, it's not running. Okay, so then let's go over to the DC2 and get it installed over there. Now I don't believe that I have DHCP installed on this server, so we're going to go bring up Server Manager. We're going to make sure. Here we go. Next, next, next. And we want to install DHCP. That's fine. Next, next, next. Okay, and it's probably going to make us reboot after we install the server service. Now, it's my preference to use DHCP built into Windows Server on an Active Directory domain because it's all integrated, same way with DNS. You do have other options, but for this subnet, for the 5 subnet, we're going to use its own separate DHCP server. This is for my network, my production network. All right, it's installed. So I'm going to come back here to Administrative Tools, and we should see DHCP now. So we can drag that to the desktop and link it there. And let's see, yeah. So here's the DHCP server. It is authorized. So let's go back to our instructions and see how we do a restore and see if we can be successful. All right, so the article just says to reverse the previous procedure. So we'll come up here, and this time we'll restore a backup, and we will go to the Windows System32 folder. It's already gone there for us. And then we'll come here to DHCP backup, I believe, is where it says to come to. Or does it say to go to backup? It says to go to backup. So let's go here to backup. We're going to tell it OK. In order for the changes to take effect, service must be stopped and restarted. Yeah, sure. An error occurred. That's what I was afraid of. All right, so there was a little bad information in that documentation. What you need to do is come under DHCP, and yeah, I've already got it restored here. But what you want to do when you come up here and right-click and do your backup, accept the default folder that it gives you on the local machine. So if you notice, you come down here, it puts it into the Windows System 32 DHCP backup folder. Create that there on your server that you're backing it up on, and then copy this folder from that server over to this folder on the machine you're going to restore to. Do the restore, and then boom, you'll see all of our policies and options and address pool and leases. They're all right here where we need them to be, including our reservations. So you can see I've got kind of a, kind of my network's just kind of thrown together here. But just to give you an idea of what you need to do to transfer your DHCP server, and it looks like it worked. All right, so I've run the following query on the primary domain controller, the one that's going to get removed. And the command is netdom space query space FSMO, FSMO. And then it tells me right now that this computer that I'm on right now, which is DC01, currently has all the FSMO roles assigned to it. And we need to move those over to DC2. So that's what we're going to go do now. So I'm going to do that same command over here. netdom query FSMO. And it sees that DC01 is the master, domain naming master, PDC, the RID pool manager, infrastructure manager. So we need to transfer all those roles over to this DC02 that is now running. So there's an easy way to do 3 of those. And you do that by opening Active Directory users and computers. And you're going to right click on the domain name here and go to Operations Masters. So you'll see right now the current master is at DC01. In order to transfer the operation master role to the following computer, click Change. So if we wanted to transfer this role, which we do, to this virtual domain controller, we click on the Change button. As if we're sure, we're going to tell it yes, and the role was transferred. Now we're going to go do the same thing with the PDC. Click on Change. Now it's been transferred, and the infrastructure, we're going to click on Change. So let's run that query again. And you'll see that all of the roles, except for the schema master and the domain naming master, have been moved to DC02. Now the question is, how do we transfer those FSMO roles, schema master and domain naming master, over? Let's go do that next. So let me show you in the end what I ended up doing here. Is I ended up running this series of commands up here, which is basically gets you in the NTDS utility. I went out to the command line to get any real work done. And you can transfer each one of these roles individually, which is what I've done. I've transferred the schema master, the RID master, the naming master, the PDC, and the infrastructure master all to DC02 from DC01. So now, meanwhile, back here on DC02, I've run the netdom query FSMO, and you'll see that DC02 now has all these roles assigned to it. Now, the rule of thumb is to run a utility in the background and verify your domain is all working correctly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a day or two to remove DC01 from my mix and make sure everything is still working without it being up and running. All right, so the last step will be to demote this domain controller. So let's see if we can figure that out without having to go through a document. We'll just wing it. I mean, we got to learn this sometime, right? Okay, so I'm going to remove roles and features next. Yeah, there we are. Next. I don't know why it defaulted to my monitoring server. That's very, very odd. There we go. I just want to move the Active Directory. So we'll select that. Okay. It tells you the first thing you need to do is demote this. So we're gonna go out and we're gonna demote this. Okay. All right. Supply the credentials to perform this operation. So Adama is the correct user. And do next. It serves the following roles. We're going to proceed with removal because we've already transferred those roles over to another server. And then we need to enter our super secret password that we created this account with, or a new administrator password for the new account. All right, click on next. Remove Active Directory when the process is complete. The server will be a member of the domain. I'm going to go ahead and demote. And I've had hit or miss with this before. So here's fingers crossed that it will work. But if it doesn't, you know, you got to be ready. All right. So it successfully worked. It's going to reboot that server. And we'll come back and we'll complete that job. All right, so I've demoted it as a domain controller, but it still should be part of the Unky Joe's Playhouse domain. And yeah, it rebooted, and it looks like we're still part of the domain. However, what I want to do is I want to create a new domain controller for my domain running Windows Server 2022 as a domain controller. And I want to move all those FSMO roles back. So I have to remove this machine from my Unky Joe's Playhouse network and go out and reset the account name. And I'll show you how I'm going to do this. And then create a new server. So the first thing I want to do is I always hard code my IP address in my servers. And I think I set this one as 5.1. And I did. So I'm gonna keep that. But what I need to do now is actually I was right where I needed to go. I'm gonna come here, go to properties. Yeah, I think it's properties. And then come up here to change settings, and we're going to move from a work group or from a domain to a work group. And you need to know the local administrative account to log back on if you do this. And then we're going to need to log off. We're going to need to verify that we can log off this domain. And then we can officially retire DC01. Okay. And close. And we'll go ahead and restart now. I should have just powered it down, but we'll go ahead and let it restart. All right, so we've removed DC01 as a domain controller. Now what we need to do is go under Active Directory because we're going to add it back. We're going to come in here and we're going to see if it got rid of it. Yeah, it did. It shouldn't even be under here. Oh, it's listed as a computer. So we need to get rid of it under here as well. So I'm just going to go under here. We could reset the account. I'm just going to delete it. So DC01 is now gone. It's no longer part of Active Directory. And let's see here. I want to go look at my NTDS settings and have that refresh. And now it should see that DC1 is removed. Huh. I wonder why DC1 is not removed. Well, it's going to be. It's gone. So now we should be able to go out and create a new domain controller running Windows Server 2022 and reset it up as DC1. All right, so here we are. Wow, it's 11 o'clock already. Unbelievable. So I need to put Active Directory on this new Windows Server 2022 and DNS. So I'm going to do that through the Add Remove Roles feature. First thing I want to do is make sure I've got all my information in here correctly. Let me go to Properties. Yeah, 5.1, 5.2 is the authoritative DNS. So we'll come up here to Manage. I've already joined this computer. Okay, let me explain what I've done. I've gone into Active Directory and I've deleted the account for the old DC1. I've loaded Windows Server 2022 on here on a virtual machine. And I've renamed this computer with the same IP address and domain name, computer name, as it had previously when it was Server 2019. And I've joined it to the ujp.local domain. So now what I'm going to do is make it an actual domain controller. And then this will end up having the FSMO roles move back to it eventually. But for now, what I want to do is get it set up as another Active Directory domain controller and another DNS server to get things squared away. So we're going to come up here to Manage. We're going to add roles and features. Next, it's a role-based feature. Make sure your IP address is correct here. That's very important. And we're going to run Active Directory Domain Services. And we're going to click on Add Features. And pay no attention. That's my damn air conditioner icing up. So pay no attention to that noise. Going to click on Next. Going to click on Next. Click on Next. Install. And I believe it's going to tell me it needs to install DNS onto here as well. We'll see. All right, we'll let that run. It says it's done. It says it succeeded. We'll click on Close here. And then it's going to want us to promote it to a domain controller. Now, I don't see DNS. It should have done that automatically. Maybe it will when we promote it to a domain controller. So let's do that next. Add a new domain controller to an existing domain. We want it to be a domain name server and global catalog server. And we need to enter a password that we would use. Should we foobar the directory services, we need a password that we can use to restore that. So make it your super secret password. Okay, next. A delegation for the DNS server because okay, that's fine. We're going to skip over that. We're going to replicate from DC2. Next. 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 Okay, it passed. Let's click on install. Okay, and we're about to be signed out because it's going to reboot. right, should be restarting. But right now I just want to get it back up and running and get DNS working so that it can still be a DNS server for the network as well. Because I've got a lot of stuff out there that's hard-coded with this IP address to be the DNS. And a lot of things are not working properly because I didn't think this out ahead of time of all those machines that would need to be reconnecting to the primary DNS server. But we're going to fix that. So that's why we're bringing it back up. And then hopefully it's going to get everything back where it needs to be. So let's go to DNS and make sure that it has it looks like it's working. Bingo. Yeah, and it's seeing the start of authority. The name server is DC01. It sees DC02 and it sees DC03. Let's see here. Now I am going to need to add a forwarder in here. And this is for my Pi-hole DNS. Okay. All right. So now either 5.1 or 254. Yeah, or, I'm sorry. I need to go out to this controller, domain controller 2. I need to make some changes here real quick. Yeah, 5.2 should be the first one. 5.1 should be the second. Okay. So that's good. Now let's go under DHCP. And we want to... I muddled with this option earlier. And I need to change it back. Scope options. I need to add 5.1 back. And it should be able to go out and resolve it now. Yep, it did. All right, so as far as my network goes now, everything should be back up and running. This machine, Prometheus, that I'm on, also had a problem. And I want to make sure it's got the right DNS settings in here. So that's, yeah, that's fine. We'll put 5.1 back in the mix here. Just to make sure it keeps everything synchronized. Okay, so it looks like we have successfully now moved our domain. We've moved all the FSMO roles over to the secondary domain controller. Made that the primary domain controller. We put DNS on it, DHCP. Made sure all that's working. And then we spun up a new domain controller running Windows Server 2022 in a virtual machine. And now we have the ability to move all of my infrastructure around for Unky Joe's Playhouse. So that'll be an episode for another day, but this just gives you an idea of some of the flexibility of using virtual machines to do your bidding. And you can run into some problems. For example, I ran into the problem earlier where I forgot to change the DNS server on the IP entries for the DNS on Prometheus. So it was looking for 5.1 to authenticate because it's a domain member. Couldn't find it. and gave me this error that the time was out of sync on the servers. And I did a little diving and found out that no, you need to point it to your new DNS server. You didn't have that in there before you changed it. It's one of those things that, it's what you don't know that comes up to bite you in the ass in the end. And that's exactly what happened to me. So, learn from my mistakes. But now it's back up and running. We've got the other way to handle that is not to make your Hyper-V machine part of your domain. Have it be a standalone server. That's a whole lot easier way to handle things. But because of the level of complexity I have in my little network here, I did it this way. But I wanted to share the successes as well as the failures with you and give you an idea of what I had to do to get around it. So there you go. So there you go. Done, and done. Now this is just a part of some bigger changes that I'm going to be making to my network. And it's going to be a whole series of videos where you folks are going to actually help me design how I'm going to do my network. I'm going to share with you on my live streams on this coming Saturday, which will be the 14th of January, what my plans are for my network. And then we're going to kind of work it out and flowchart it in the live stream and figure out how I'm going to label my network, how I'm going to set things up. I'm going to share that with you, and then we'll build this network out. Right now, I've got everything on a single subnet. And while that works fine, and it makes my management life very easy, because everything's on one domain and everything's on one subnet, it can get a bit messy. And it's not a good practice to put everything on one network. So I want to show y'all how we can separate our networks into VLANs, into separate subnets, and how all that, it can get really complicated. But I think it would be a good lesson to learn for all of us, including myself. And I am going to be bringing on some help with this because I've got a unique kind of setup here. So I'll be bringing in some help from some other YouTube creators to help me wrap my head around VLANs and exactly how they work. And it is going to be, like I said, a series of videos that we're going to be doing. The other thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going out to YouTube and I'm going to be clearing out some old content that's on my channel. I think what we're going to do is we're going to whittle it down to the last, everything older than the last 2 years is going to go bye-bye. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this yet. We're going to archive it somewhere else. We're going to get rid of all of our playlists on YouTube and we're going to recreate them from scratch to better organize YouTube a little bit better so you can go out and find things when you need to. So, but that's another video for another time. But right now, we want to thank y'all for joining us. And I hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Please give us a thumbs up down below if you like the video. Leave your comments in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And click that notification bell to be notified new videos when they come out. What else? Oh yeah, donate if you're so inclined. PayPal, Patreon, YouTube join function, or just become a YouTube premium member and everybody gets a slice of the pie. You can go out and look at UncieJoe'sPlayhouse.com, and that has all of our social media links out there, including our Discord channel where we have some lively conversations, and we have an after party after all of our live streams on Saturday from 11 to noon Central Time. So be sure to join us there. Please don't forget to come back and see us. And don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.